So, welcome back to the Journey to CEO podcast, everyone. It is season 2, and I told you guys that we are going to have some phenomenal, amazing entrepreneurs, leaders, and just dynamic forces on this season. So, I have someone very, very special, very near and dear. I've been cheering and rooting for her in the background, and I'm just super, super proud of this Black woman. Hailing all the way from Baltimore, Maryland, Nykidra Robinson is an award-winning leader, entrepreneur, and global visionary known for her impactful work in community engagement and political advocacy. She is the founder and CEO of Black Girls Vote, Inc., a nonpartisan grassroots organization dedicated to encouraging and mobilizing African-American women to use their voting power to advocate for issues that improve the quality of life for their communities. Prior to the establishment of Black Girls Vote, Nike has held various leadership positions in local and state governments, including roles in Baltimore City Mayor's Office, Maryland Lieutenant Governor's Office, and the Maryland Chamber of Commerce. In 2022, Nike was awarded the APSA, American Political Science Organization's Distinguished Award of Civic and Community Engagement. She has been featured in Forbes, MSNBC, The Washington Post, NPR, and CNN, to name a few. Nike believes voting is a true catalyst for change, and her passion has led to the creation of impactful programs and events across the country. Welcome, Miss Nykidra Robinson.
Oh, thank you, Lindsay. It's so crazy because when people read your bio, it's like, I cringe sometimes because I'm more of an introvert than people think. And sometimes we just don't want to hear about yourself. Like, okay. And I don't want to say I'm shy at times, but it's an honor to be here. So thank you for that. And it's also a reminder, like, wow, I have had a journey. I'm excited to be here on the Journey to CEO podcast and to just kick it and just talk and just have some good girlfriend chatting.
That's exactly what it is. And it's so funny because I think we always need a reminder of what we have done, particularly as Black women, because we're always working. We're the most disrespected,
unprotected
species and unprotected species in the entire world, right? And so to give you your flowers, to honor you, to let you know that I see you. We first met in 2016, before the 2016 election.
Wow.
You just started probably Black Girls Vote in 2015.
Yep.
We met at WHUR. We both had like interviews. I was in there. I know I was in there being, passionate. And you were championing the cause for Black women. And from that moment on, I have been cheering for you from the sidelines. And I'm super proud of everything that you're doing. And so I just want to honor you and thank you so much for saying yes.
Oh, thank you. And of course, I think in this journey is so important to, one, pause, right? We're always hustling and bustling and trying to figure it out. And this is going on, that's going on. But sometimes it's good to just pause and reflect on the journey and reflect on where you have come, because we're always trying to reach another goal. We're trying to do this. Yes, I'm like, we're not doing enough. We got to do this, we got to do that. But then sitting back and hearing you talk about where we have come from, like, you know what? I'm proud of me, even in the midst of wanting to do more and thinking I'm not doing enough at times, like, and just being grateful. And to have women like you or people like you who are rooting us on from afar. You all are the lifelines that keep us going as an organization, that keeps me going as an organization. When I meet people and they say, I've heard of Black Girls Vote, or people just uplifting our names in rooms that, quite frankly, we haven't made it into yet or haven't been a part of. That's the beauty of the journey. And it's not a pretty story. It hasn't been a beautiful journey, all accolades along the way. There's been a lot. But even in the midst of it, in the trials and tribulations of it all, God said, this is what you're to do. And so I'm grateful for being obedient in that season in 2015. You're right. We launched on November 30th, 2015, which is the birth date of Shirley Chisholm. So pretty much 2016, because the end of November and in December, it's the holiday season. But yep, we launched, and next year we'll be celebrating 10 years of the work.
Oh my goodness. And you're going to have a birthday party, of course. You have a gala every year.
Oh yeah, you know what? I think so. I think we have an annual gala each year, which is our big thing. So we may just tie it all into one big celebration, because 10 years is big in business, and a lot of people don't last 2-3 years.
Yeah.
To say we've done it in the last 10 years and we're still learning, we're still growing, we're still looking to scale, has been a joy and a blessing to be.
Yes. Well, I will be there. I'm going to come. I'm coming to that celebration, girl. It's funny that you say that your names are mentioned in rooms that you don't even know, because I had a board retreat last week,
Okay.
and your organization
Wow.
came up
Mm-hmm.
in the board retreat as a model for how you're able to mobilize different chapters around the United States of America, how
Yeah.
you're able to energize different young Black girls and young Black women who are just really championing your cause. And so I want to talk about, before we jump into all of that, I want to know little Nike, the journey.
Oh
How
gosh.
did we get
Child.
here? How
Okay.
did we get here? Oh, you like, oh my goodness.
I'm big Nike now. It's like,
Yeah, you're big Nike, but
oh, no. Oh gosh. Okay.
all of us have the little girl, right?
Yeah.
All of us protect that little girl. She gives us play. She
Mhm.
has a lot to do with who we are today. So
Absolutely.
walk me through the journey to
Okay.
CEO for Nike.
Woo, how much time do we have? Okay. So the journey to Nike. Nike's still evolving, right? But as I sit back here on this day and I think about how did I get here in this seat on this interview, um, I come here because I stand on the shoulders of the one who come before me, most importantly, my mom, who I recently lost. So I'll get through this. I'll try to get through this interview without crying, but I cry every
You let
time.
it out. You let it
Yeah, because I
out.
think about how much she meant to me and how much she sacrificed. And as a kid, you don't realize it, you don't recognize it, and so it's just I come from a place of just gratefulness to have such a strong, beautiful Black woman who just sacrificed so much for us. And we didn't. I don't have the story where I grew up poor, right? And I think living in Baltimore, there was a sense of like, you grew up in Baltimore, you grew up in the trench, you grew up poor. I'm like, no, I grew up middle class. I grew up in the suburbs, and but I just know what my mom did to make sure that we had and didn't have without. And I grew up with two-parent household, and my parents didn't always get along. There was tension. My dad suffered from mental illness and things like that. And as a kid, you realize it, but then as you're an adult with the child, you're like, wow, my mom endured so much. So I'm a middle child. So middle child. I tell people middle children are the best, right? And I say that because you're not the oldest, you're not the first, so you're not like, oh, this is your first child, and you're not the baby. So as a middle child, I've always been the one who has set my own path. Even in elementary school, I remember being homecoming queen in elementary school, right? And that was 5 years old in kindergarten. Went to middle school, went to high school, ended up going to college. I went to a PWI. When people hear Black as well, people automatically assume I went to a HBCU. I did not. My mom, my parents didn't go to college. I was first generation college student, and so I didn't grow up with the you're going to go to college one day, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be this. I was just like, oh, I got into college because of a program called Upward Bound. And Upward Bound, for those who don't know, it's a college preparatory program. In high school, my best friend's aunt got her into the program, and she said you can get $10 every week if you go. And I was like, I want $10 a week, and they were like, it's fun, but they paid for my SATs, paid for college shorts, and so I ended up going to Frostburg State University as a result of having someone else, and it really takes a village, and that's my best friend's aunt, Auntie Betty, at the time, who said, "Oh, I got her in this program. You all are her friends," and we were like, "Oh, we want to do it too." And so that really early on, you realize how important your circle is and the influence that they have on your life. So went to Frostburg State, studied business marketing. Look, if someone would have told me 20 years ago I would be running an organization about voting, non-profit organization, I'm like, bull crap. Oh, I'm going to be in New York as a marketing executive, a CEO, somebody who's living this fabulous life with a lot of money and just enjoying this lifestyle. But so have it after college, studied business marketing. Um, my last semester in school, I studied Mandarin. So I studied Mandarin, so I was learning the language, went abroad after graduation as a graduation present, came back and was like, oh, okay, now I need to find a job. My line sister, I'm a Delta, woo woo, woo woo, should I say? Her husband worked in politics at the time. And he had worked for the mayor of Baltimore City, who had then became the governor, Governor O'Malley. So then the council president became the mayor, Mayor Sheila Dixon, and he worked in administration and said, "Do you need a job?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I need a job," and it wasn't a lot of money. And I was like, "You're going to be working in the mayor's office, going to community meetings, and meeting with the community members and talk about the issues that are happening in the community, and you would report back to the mayor." I'm like, oh, "Okay, I can do that." But I remember who my grandfather, who was living at the time, who I was extremely close with, he was like, "You're going to work in the mayor's office? That's a big deal." I'm like, "It's just the mayor's office." Like, even though I was in SGA and all that, I didn't understand the magnitude of what I was getting into. Didn't understand that the rooms that I would be in at that age, at 24, would just set me up for just the relationships that I still utilize to this day, almost 20 years old later. Those relationships and being in spaces where, um, the jurisdiction that I covered was, you had some of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Baltimore City and then some of the poorest. And I could be with the mayor that morning and the wealthiest, but later on that evening, I'm in the one of the poorest neighborhoods. I'm in the trenches, but everybody wanted something from the mayor. Everybody had a request. Everybody had an ask. Everybody wanted a meeting. So that was my firsthand knowledge in being understanding the power of politics, the power of elected officials. So I left the mayor's office to go work in the governor's administration with Lieutenant Governor Brown. I oversaw his outreach, communications, did a lot of work with him. Then went to a government agency, Department of Housing, and fast forward in 2014, Anthony Brown ran for governor. He lost the election to Larry Hogan. So in 2015, I lost my political appointee. And many of you who work in government politics, you serve at the pleasure of. I thought, okay, the election's in November. Here it is, July. They haven't let me go. I may be okay. I'm doing a good job. I'm getting along. But I went to work that day and they said, "Today's your last day. No severance and no plan." As a single Black woman, I'm like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I remember crying, being really sad. But something happened a few months before that. And that was in April of that same year. Freddie Gray was murdered in the city of Baltimore, lost his life at the hands of police. And the next day, when the riots happened, at the time I was living in West Baltimore, people were calling me like, "Are you okay? Do you need to come stay with me?" Because I literally could walk to where, I walked to Montgomery Mall. People are like, "You okay?" I'm like, "No." But the next day, like many other people, I was out in the community, like, what can we do? Can we clean up? Is it more marching? What are we doing? And so the riots happened in April of 2015. In May of 2015, I purchased the domain name Black Girls Vote. Didn't tell anyone about it because I said, "Hey, the election's in 2016. What better time?" Because we heard in 2008, 2012 how Black women delivered the presidency for Barack Obama. What better time than now than to organize? But I sat on it because I had my good government job and I didn't want to stir any pots because here I am, was appointed in a Democratic administration, and now Governor Hogan, who's Republican, that's a Republican administration. I ain't trying to, ring the alarm, trying to bring any attention to myself because I could lose my good government job. This is my sole source of income. Didn't tell anyone about it. And then in July, as I just mentioned, that same year, I lost that good government job. And the straw, I'll say, that broke the camel's back, a murder happened directly across the street from me. And that murder happened. And when the detectives knocked on my door, they said it looked like a drug transaction that had gone bad. And I was like, wow, that shook me up a little bit. Coming in the house late at night and just never knowing what's going on in your neighborhood, who's watching you. I said, all those things are tied to government. All those things are tied to policy. And the riots, me losing my job, the murder, economic empowerment, people are struggling. And I said, you know what? This is the time to form Black Girls Vote. So literally that happened in August, and in November we launched Black Girls Vote. And so that's little Nike. So I've always been, well, that's the journey to start Black Girls Vote, but I've always been, I would say, ambitious. Always been the one in my family who, I've learned, knew from an early age, I was assigned to bring family together. I was just different. And so that's how we're here. And here we are 9 years later on the Journey to CEO podcast.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for sharing. And I love to ask people the journey because I want to make sure that not just the listeners, but that they themselves can see how the dots are connected, right? Like we may not know, where the destiny is or where we may end up, but we know that God has called us to a specific purpose, that we have this passion inside of us, and that even though, this little girl who went to Frostburg University, who studied marketing and Mandarin. You need the marketing, right, for Black Girls Vote. You need to understand the wealthiest, the gap, and the poorest of neighborhoods to speak to people at all different levels, right? So you're nonpartisan. You may not know why, but now you're using all of those skills in what you are doing now, right? And so that journey, like how, and also your mother, right? And I want to give honor to her, and I want you to know that you have my condolences. I believe I've spoken to you about that before, but you're always in my prayers.
Okay.
Yeah, always in my prayers. And it also sounds like she is a big influence, right, in the whole title of Black Girls Vote, watching her sacrifice so much,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I'm pretty sure she probably is and was proud of you and still is rooting from heaven, right? And so thank you so much for sharing that journey. Now
Oh,
I want to talk. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I want to know, you have, like, you moving and shaking. You may not see it, but you are literally like, to tell me that you are an introvert is shocking to me. But I'm also a little ambivertish, and people think I'm super social, but I like my me time. So,
yeah.
but you are what I would consider to be a prototype for relationship building and positioning. Like, you are a queen at that. And I don't know if you know what you're doing. Like, I know you know what you're doing, but I don't know if you know you're doing it. Girl, you are a queen of positioning. So, how are you managing, right? Being the leader of a nonpartisan national organization, which I see it as being an international organization eventually. I don't know, we could talk about that, but
Yep.
how are you managing that? And you're also a mom now, right? So how are you managing? How are you balancing that?
I have learned to let go at times and get help, right? And even in the midst of it, like it may be all put together, but even in the midst of it, my phone, of course, is ringing off the hook. This is happening. It's the election year. We're 41 days away from the presidential election.
Ooh,
But I think to your point, as you mentioned, relationships, I know that I people see Nike, and I am very cognizant of when I get awards that when you see when I get this award, no, it's not just Nike who's doing the work. I have a team of people who supported me. Many of them, majority of them are volunteers, right? We have some consultants and things like that, but we do not do the work um, for the fanfare. We don't do it for the accolades. We do it, and if there's a passion with it, I truly believe that Black women will save the world and Black women have continued, and we are healers, we're natural, we're brilliant, we're gifted and talented, but there's been so much systematically, so many things have done to, as you said earlier, to make us feel disrespected and unprotected, and the only person who's going to save us is ourselves. And so I think about the next generation of Black girls, and so what we're doing with Black Girls Vote is creating a community, and it's not a perfect community, right? And I'm sure people may be watching this, like I emailed them, they ain't respond back, they ain't like, listen, I am not sitting here to say, oh, we got the perfect organization, we got them, we're tight, our systems in order. Absolutely not. And that's where I'm in this season of some reflection, and there's going to be a shift that's happening with me in the organization, which I am extremely excited about because it becomes a lot. It becomes the burden where you want to show up for everybody, where people show up for you, and you get so many requests, so many demands, and you want to do as much as you can. But I also have to be cognizant of the team, the small but mighty team we have. They're burnt out. They can't do it. They work full-time jobs, and so I truly believe in the power of relationships, but more importantly, authentic relationships.
yeah.
If you know, and I know, if people can't rely on you, or people don't trust you, or you haven't proven themselves to you, it's hard. When we've done campaigns, our voting campaigns in different cities, I remember meeting with people saying, look, I know you're looking at me like, who are you and what do you want? And we don't trust you. I get it. So it's my job to prove to you that I'm going to do everything I said I'm going to do. I'm going to execute. And how do we build not just this one time, but build an ongoing relationship? And so that's what I lead with. And I tell people all the time, your name is your brand. That is your biggest brand. So before there was a Black Girls Vote, there was a Nykidra, right? There was a Nike, and people would not have supported me, or the organization, had I not proven myself, have I not showed up for other people, had I not just been who I am. And so a lot of times with people, they start businesses and start things, and people don't support it because forget the business, who are you as an individual? And if I support you as an individual and I want to see you win, and you have people who don't want to see you win, which is totally fine, but focus on the people who want you to win, the people who are praying for you, the people who are supporting you, who are donating $5 or $10. It may not be a lot who's saying, I see you, sis, who's lifting your name in the room. And that goes a long way, because it's nothing like going somewhere, or I remember being on Zoom calls with people in California years ago, like, we've heard of Black Girls Vote. So you've heard of Black Girls Vote in California? Like, oh my God, right? But just knowing that we built an amazing brand. But I think as leaders and entrepreneurs, sometimes you got to stop, pause, and say, okay, I got to make sure I'm building the business alongside the brand, and that's where I am now.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. And you mentioned that it's a volunteer organization, so
Yep.
I'm definitely interested in knowing how do you mobilize and keep them engaged,
Yeah.
right? I know listeners have nonprofits.
Yeah.
I'm connected to a lot of nonprofits, and
Hmm.
part of that is getting volunteer engagement and getting them to stay. So
Yeah.
how are you doing that?
It can be challenging. It's very challenging. And so for us, what's been working best for us right now this season is our collegiates, because the collegiate chapters, they have their own nucleus. They're in their own communities. They have a community within the university and the college, so they have their own meetings. They're able to operate. But even here, when you're in different cities and or all the women in Baltimore, I need you to do this. Look, I have a 2 year old now, so I get it. Like, hey sis, I thought I was gonna be able to show up, but I can't show up. And then so what that happens is it disappoints the people who are going to be there. You were supposed to do this, but you can do that. But and so where we're finding that putting these young girls on college campus who are excited, who are energetic, who are ready, who are passionate. And I told them, it's not that we don't want you, we need you. We need you to carry the voice in the name of Black Girls Vote. So seeing how they're taking off, and with them, it has become a little competitive. Right? Oh, Howard chapter's on this. Oh no, Hampton's on this. North Carolina A&T's on that. Wait a minute, Spelman girls are here. Just yesterday, Temple College got approved. And so
Wow.
what's so cool is that people think Nike or Black Girls, or this is just for HBCUs. I said, no, I went to a PWI. So one, the girls on campus have their own community. And for some, it has been, I don't want to say a stepping stone. It's giving them the opportunity to be involved in an organization where, if you're not Greek, some of the sororities, it's a very challenging to get on. It has been an opportunity for them to use that as saying, hey, I am doing community service. As a member of Black Girls Vote, so they've been able to leverage Black Girls Vote to some extent. But it also gives them a sense of community and being around other young women and doing things, being able to build programming. We give them programming ideas and things we've done. But some things, I just saw a Black Girls Vote bingo, like, okay, right. And so it gives them the ability to be creative, innovative. They're hosting town halls. They're doing these things in a nonpartisan way. And so that has been just to see those girls on campus growing up and building and scaling the organization has been beautiful. And then on our end, getting people to volunteer, it has its challenges, but we have some amazing leaders, some extraordinary leaders who have come and said, hey, I'm going to take this and run with it. I'm going to build advocacy. I'm going to build outreach. We have X amount of events. Ice cream shop reached out to us and said, we want to do something. Next Saturday, we're going to get a free scoop of ice cream. You get registered to vote. So, like, innovative things like that, but it doesn't always require me being there and saying these leaders are identifying the volunteers who are training the volunteers and screening them. And so it truly is a team effort.
Yeah, no, and it's impressive. Like I told you, your name and your organization was
Wow.
mentioned in a board meeting for a nonprofit that I'm
Oh,
on the board of.
oh,
And
nice.
so you are doing amazing work, and your organization's name is being mentioned in rooms you really don't know.
Oh, thank
So we are studying you
you.
as like a
Oh,
case study, right? You're a case study. I was like, I know
mhm.
Nike. And
And
so
it's
yeah,
so crazy, really quick, because I feel like I need to do more like sharing the journey on social media. But then like I don't feel like it, right? And so that's something that I struggle with is like, all right, people need to see you going through this and see you prepping for this interview, see you going here, running here. And I'm like, by the time I pull out my phone, try to do this, I'm like, sis, I'm tired. Like I am tired, but then it's also like, yeah, I don't know about that. I'm also private. I'm also this and that. And then like I don't know if if I look okay. I feel like, so there's a bunch of that happens too.
well, let me just say you're beautiful.
Oh,
And I feel like we need to see that. We need to see how
yeah.
this dynamic Black woman is galvanizing this national organization with a 2-year-old. Because I'm
Yeah.
a mother too. And first of all, like
Yeah.
I built my cloud solutions company,
Yeah.
which most of my listeners know, and I sold that in 2022. But as I was building that, I had my baby on my boob, like we were
Yeah.
doing this thing together, and it was not easy and it was frustrating. And there were times where I had a big meeting and I had my little toddler looking at me in the face, and I'm like, either we're gonna take a nap or we're gonna hop on this virtual call in 2020. Like, what are we doing here? So people need to
Mm-hmm.
see that. And Black Girls Vote, as you know,
Mm-hmm.
is so much bigger than you.
Oh my God.
Um,
And that's
it
what keeps
is,
going.
yeah, and it's going to keep growing. And the legacy of Nike, the book that we will read, the fact that you will go in the history books as one of our Shirley Chisholms, right? One of our Fannie Lou Hamers, one of our Kamala Harrises. Like, I want you to understand how we see you, right? So we definitely want to see how you're managing that, for sure. One of the things that, you know, I was so impressed by when I first met you, because I was like, how is she doing this? I was still on the fence about, I think I was in my 20s in 2016. Yeah, I was in my 20s and I was still on the fence about what I really wanted to do. I had gotten out of politics
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm a policy business girl. I have a voice. Like, how am I going to do this? And when you walked in the room, it was just something about you was so infectious. Your passion, your focus, your drive, your clarity of your vision. And I'm like, how is she doing this? That was in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
As we know, Black women are the least funded
Yeah.
organizations,
Yeah.
right? And you talked about losing your job
Mm-hmm.
and your passion being, the death of Freddie Gray and launching. What were those lean years looking like as building a nonprofit organization? And how did you get the funding?
We're
Like,
still lean, right? So let's be very clear.
yes,
Um,
yes.
and I think people look at us and say, "Oh, Black Girls Vote is a multi-million-dollar organization." Absolutely not. We're not $1 million, but people see it because we take pride in our work and in the products that we put out. I remember meeting with a potential funder. He said, "Your problem is that you put out a great product, so people don't think you need the funding and support." I'm like, no, but we really do. And we're still working through that, looking for grants, looking for funding, and that's why, as I mentioned earlier, as people who are passionate, for many years, I've been driven by the passion, and we get focused on the passion, but we don't focus on the business. And so that's why I said now I have to focus on the business because we're not sustainable. Very clear, right? And so it's not to the point where it's sustainable. And so how do we sustain the organization? We have not gotten a continued grant for a 5 year investment. Some organizations say for the next 5 years, I'm going to give you $100,000. I'll give you 50,000, 75, whatever it may be. We have not been there yet. And so what does that mean? It's hard to hire. It's hard to plan. And so, people hire people. We use consultants. And when you have consultant, you're one of many. You're one of many. So I'm not gonna say there's no loyalty because we have some amazing consultants who work with us, but understand this is not their job. They don't eat, sleep, and breathe you. But we've had to do what we had. We've had to do best with what we've had. So what's important for us and what's critical, as you mentioned, being in those rooms and people saying, "Hey, here's Black Girls Vote. Here's a $20,000 grant. Here's a $30,000 grant. Here's a $5,000 grant." Or people going on our website and making a donation. I remember when we launched, we got a money order from a woman for $10, and you could tell, and but based on her penmanship, I'm assuming she was older, but it was one of the most beautiful gifts we got because it was like, I see you, and I'm taking my $10 from someone who was probably on a fixed income and decided to pour into our organization. And so for that, those are the things that matter. But yes, we are, recently launched our advisory board because we need advisory board members um, to help us and say, hey, let's help raise some capital. Let's help do these things so that we can potentially build and scale so that we ultimately will be the national, we are national, the international organization. When I hear people in Africa saying we want a Black Girls Vote, right? I remember early on, I used to tell this joke, say when people were like, oh, we want Black Girls Vote in West Africa, Nigeria. I say, I want Black Girls Vote in West Baltimore. And this is early on, but ultimately, we want to expand, um, to the Caribbean, to across the country, because it truly is a movement, not just a moment. And so we're taking it by stride. But again, over the next few years, making it sustainable, focus on the business and scale, which is super duper important, but also at the same time, putting out a great quality product so that people will not only see the work, but respect the work that we're doing with limited resources.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for your transparency about where you are in your organization financially.
Mhm.
I think it's very interesting when you say you spoke to your financial advisor and he said that your problem is you look like you don't need it. But as Black women, we have to work twice as hard. We have to present ourselves as excellent, right? Like
Mhm. Yeah.
10 times, 100 times more than our non-melanated counterparts. And
Yeah.
so that's a very like interesting dichotomy to deal with because you want me not to be excellent to get the funding, but I have to present myself as excellent. So
Mhm.
I guess my understanding would be are you staying as a nonprofit model or do you see yourself expanding to some for-profit
Mhm.
uh, models as a non-governmental organization or how do you see that?
Yeah. And it wasn't my financial advisor. I'm sorry. It was a potential funder who we had met with.
Okay, a potential funder.
Yeah. But to answer your question, a combination of both. There's so much when I think of like Black girls vote. Being able to generate revenue. Eventually having a curriculum, being able to get into the schools. Being able to with our merchandise and motivate. I have my Black Girls Vote shirt now. Looking at a business model, but then also, we have a C4 as well as a C3. We want to do some stuff with internships for Black girls. So there's so much, but as I mentioned, scaling and focusing on the business side. But you're right. We don't have, when you think about the Black community and we look at just our wealth as a community, and I don't want to get the numbers mixed up. I think it was the average household white Americans has $500,000 saved, Asian Americans maybe 250, and then when it came to Black families, like $44,000, right, on average saved. So when you think about our social capital, then thinking about who's pointing to Black Girls Vote. When I say Black Girls Vote, unapologetically, we are a Black-led organization focused on Black girls. We've had people say, "Why not it be all girls vote?" I'm saying no because I'm talking about the issues that Black women deal with. When I talk about the advocacy of the policy, and we talk about Black women maternal health, why are more Black women dying when giving birth, right? When we talk about breast cancer, Black women are diagnosed later. When we're talking about economic empowerment, Black women, as you know, it's hard to get financial loans when it comes. What percent of Black women? Less than 2% of Black women are funded. When it comes to launching those businesses, though we are the fastest group of entrepreneurs, those are issues we saw what happened with the Fearless Fund. There's so much has been happening or that has happened to attack Black women. And so for me, it's like, no, we're an organization committed to the issues that impact Black women. Not saying that we won't have our allies or when we're out, we register everybody. You can be whatever background you are. But when I talk about what's happening in our community, it's important for there to be a Black girls vote that exists. And unapologetic about that. But yes, as Black women, we have to show up differently and work twice as hard, and we don't have access to those rooms where you can go into a room. Even with Black women running for office, it's such a challenge for them to raise capital for those campaigns because you can't go to your parents, your aunties, your uncles. So the first people when you're launching something, you have an idea. Who you typically go to is your family and friends. You're close to them and say,
Mm.
"Hey, I need to raise this capital. I need money." And a lot of people don't have that disposable income within our communities. Aren't homeowners. I can't pull out a loan, refinance my home. We saw what happened. With Redline and things in our community that truly impact the generational wealth. And so when we talk about Black women, there's so many hurdles and things we must overcome.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. And beyond, we're in a very exciting time right now
Mm-hmm.
with the potential, and I'm just gonna keep speaking that it's not even the potential, it just is. We will have a Black woman, the first Black woman president, right, of the United States of America. And certainly Black Girls Vote has been positioned to be to have a seat at the table, to have a voice in not just the voting, right, but also the policy shaping. So, what are some of the issues that when Kamala when Kamala Harris wins, when Kamala Harris wins, what are some of the issues that are at the forefront that Black Girls Vote will be championing and trying to galvanize coalitions behind?
So Black Girls Vote, we're nonpartisan, right? I just want to be very clear. We have women in Black Girls Vote who identify as Republican, who identify as independent, and also identify as Democrat, right? And so, regardless of the party, we just are talking about the policies, right? And some of the things I just mentioned, Black women maternal health. When I had my son, some would consider it a geriatric pregnancy. I had him over the age of 35. Right. And so for me, I remember being there and like, okay, my heart is beating fast. Okay, run an EKG, and being able to feel like my voice is heard. Right. And so there's so many women We saw recently a black woman who wanted to have, who had to travel across state lines to get an abortion, right? What
Mm.
happened? The fetus, when she took the pill, the fetus didn't completely exit her body, and so she had an infection. She ended up passing away, right? So reproductive justice, when we talk about that, when we talk about our right to choose as black women, that's important. When we talk about the economy, right? We have black women who are starting these businesses, but we don't have access to the capital. And so who's saying, hey, let's launch something like the Fearless Fund? Which administration is willing to pour into organizations like the Fearless Fund? I've seen policy with the Vice President Harris saying about home ownership. That's important to black women are buying homes, and so those programs matter. Um, there's so many things when we talk about specifically for black women. We want to make sure we're talking about when we're in the community. We hear black women talk about education. Even though we're in college, I'm grateful that my student loans were forgiven under this administration. But what about the next administration and future generations? And saying, how are we preparing that our black kids and our students are graduating and don't have the insurmountable amount of debt? So let's talk about education, but early childhood education, and the quality of the education. So it's one thing to put our babies in school and let them start pre-K 3 early, but if they're in those schools and not getting a quality education, and we're competing globally, those are the things that are impacting us, and some of the things we want to make sure that we are on the forefront in discussing. And we can't take on every issue, and so that's how we have amazing allies, voting rights. So economics, education, healthcare, and voting rights are some of the things. And environmental justice is something that more recently that our young people, our black girls, are talking about as well.
Absolutely. I want to go back to my balance question, but I want to talk about how are you managing grief? Are you in therapy
Hmm.
as on your journey? Do you have like a grief counseling group? Like, how are you managing that? I have a lot of listeners and I've served a lot of clients who have
Hmm.
those experiences,
Yeah.
and that slows people down, that stops some people, but it hasn't stopped you. So,
Oh, no, no, it has put me down on my behind, right? I don't know if I can curse, but I would say, but it has put
what?
me
Just
down.
be free. Be
What I
free.
say, for right? It has put me down. But I am in therapy. I have a phenomenal therapist. I didn't do grief counseling, but I'm in therapy regularly, and that has helped. He's given me tasks like to journal, though I'm not as good at journaling. But to be honest with you, it was nothing but God, because I had my son and then my mom passed away 3 weeks later. So God knew what I needed, and I pour so much into my son that he's helping me grieve. Even though today I told you, oh, he gave me a run for my money today. Like, oh, baby boy, he's lit. But just being able to know that my mom got a chance to experience him very very briefly is a beautiful thing. Being able to just surround myself with him in love and just helping me go through my grief and coping, and just he has been the joy that I've needed in this season. And you never can prepare for grief, right? I think we can have an idea of like, oh, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. You just never know how it'll hit you. And I could be okay right now, get off the Zoom call, hear a song and start crying, right? Or get on, and so I've just been able to be surrounded by people's prayers and their loves and memories. And someone called me last week, was like, your mom supported me and I want to support you. Just those things, that hearing just stories has helped me along the way. And so anybody who's dealing with grief, I tell people it's your journey, and never let anyone put a timetable and say, it's been 2 years since my mom has transitioned. It feels like 2 weeks, right? But that's still too long. And so you just, the closest person to you in the world. And so never let anyone tell you how you should handle it. But if you do feel like you need help, if you're not healing, I don't want to say fast enough, but you just need, it's okay to get help. We all need help. And even with Black Girls Vote and just being a mom or being a friend or being, a Black woman, we all need help. And no one can do this thing by themselves. They shouldn't feel like they have to be, quite honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for sharing. And I agree with your therapist about the journaling. At Journey to CEO, we don't just look at, you know, the accomplishments and the work that we do, but we see being a CEO as being someone who's able to be whole and be
Mhm.
well on the way, right? Like enough with the hustle and grind culture where we just
Yep.
keep pushing past all of the pain, but
Hmm.
even feeling our feelings, right? And so I'm an advocate of journaling. I found that it to be extremely helpful, even with, the loss of many members in my family. My father, I found journaling and expressing my true,
Yep.
right, authentic feelings. Because
Mm-hmm.
you can talk to your therapist, but there are some things that you
I
think that
ain't talking about that.
like, I'm not going there with you. Like, this
I
is
don't
a
want you to judge me, even though you're supposed to judge me. I'm judging myself at this moment, so I don't want you to judge me.
I don't need you judge, and I don't even want to think about if you're judging me. Like, I know you say you're not, but I don't even want to think about that. So I'm gonna let God, like, it's between me and God, and I'm gonna tell the truth. And so, start small, but it has been a godsend, particularly being a mother
Yeah.
and being a wife and wearing all of these hats. Like, to sit down and just write out the truest of my feelings has been
Yeah.
so cathartic. So,
And I think something about journaling. It gives you're honest, right? Not too
yes.
many times that you journal and lie. Like, and you being vulnerable and like, this is how I really really feel, right? um as a mom, as a as all these things, like, oh, this is what's really going on. And I used to journal a lot more frequently, and I need to pick it up. But when I look at my old journals and read them, it's just so cool to read, like, I wrote that, or like, okay, this is how I was feeling. And just to see the evolution, like, child, even with like dating and like guys,
Yeah.
like, man, I liked him so much, what was I thinking, right? Even now getting back into dating for me is like, oh, here we go again, like, so I'm looking forward to journaling a little bit more. So I think that's something that, Lindsay, I'm going to ask you to hold me accountable for. I ain't saying I'm journaling every day, like, sister, did you journal? I'm like, okay, and
I'll
so
do you one better. I need your address, and I'm gonna send you
oh,
a journal
okay.
specifically for you.
Oh, y'all, you got to lean on your village and your circle.
Yeah, specifically for you. I like to ask specific journal prompt questions, so I'm gonna send you one that I use myself. But I really do, especially where Black Girls Vote is going, the vision for it. You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I have my. I'm okay. I promise. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna pause for a second. Okay. Especially for the vision of Black Girls Vote being an international organization, there is a level of wholeness that I feel like we have to walk into before we get to our next level, even if we don't understand that. Are you taking breaks? Are you going on vacation? How are you relaxing? Like, what do you do to relax?
To be honest with you, I just got back from a vacation
Ooh,
last week. No, but I took my son, so it wasn't really a vacation,
that's
right?
not a
I said,
vacation.
oh, if no one else had a good time, oh, that baby had a good time, right? But I am okay with the pause. And even though it seems bad, I'm okay with saying, you know what, I need to take a nap. And so I'll have my assistant, like, even now, I don't schedule any meetings between 4 and 5 if I can help it, because I got to pick him up at 4:30. So I need to, like, ooh, so if I can rest for a little bit, take an hour, like, just lay and do nothing, because I have to prepare myself for an evening ahead, right?
Yeah.
So that's been working. I took a vacation, that didn't end up being a vacation because I had him, but just getting away, and I'm still working the whole time. And my sister and niece says like, you worked the whole time, but it's okay. I still felt good because I didn't have to think about. I was on a cruise. I didn't have to think about what am I going to eat. Just walk up and go and eat. I didn't have to worry about those things. I'm in the pool. I'm in the hot tub. So that, but I truly like the work and doing events and stuff. Like, when you love the work and seeing people and bringing people together, that has been like, that's fun to me, right? Because I know I'm gifted at bringing people together. I know I'm gifted at event planning. I'm gifted at those things. So sometimes where it can be overwhelming to people, it's not as overwhelming. But I have learned to pause. And the beautiful thing about starting a business of Black Girls Vote, is that you don't have anyone who's micromanaging you or saying do this and do that. And so, and I tell people, starting Black Girls Vote has been a blessing to me. It allowed me to be there and support my mom in her journey when she got sick, right? And so me being able to be in the hospital with her, go to her doctor's appointments, those things matter. And so if Black Girls Vote doesn't do anything else for me, I am so blessed and so grateful, even though I know that we are on a journey, that will lead to not just national work, but international work.
Absolutely, absolutely. You still didn't rest though. I'm just gonna
Yeah,
and
I
it's
feel like after the election, I can rest. I feel like after
after
the
the
election,
election, you got 41 days.
yeah, after the
Yes.
election, I can like just say, let me just breathe a little bit, and then. But right now, no, you can't rest right
No,
now.
not right now. We got work to do for sure. But
Yeah.
after the election, for sure. Just a break, whatever that looks like for you. Um, I want to ask you, what is one thing you would tell Little Nike, if you could tell her one thing that will carry her through her life, what would you say?
It's so funny when people say Nike, you mean Nike like the shoe? I said no, like the goddess. But one thing I appreciate about the shoe brand is the tagline: "Just do it, just
Mm.
do it, just do it. Do it scared, do it unsure, do it afraid." And I must give credit to one of my girlfriends when I told them about the idea of Black Girls Vote. I was like, I have this idea. She said, "Well, you got to do it. You got to have a press conference. You got to do this." I'm like, "What?" And I was like, "I'm not ready," but because she encouraged me, and that's important about your circle, um, I did it. And even though I was very uncertain, and sometimes we let great be the enemy of good. We want it to be perfect. We don't want to expose ourselves to the world when we put it out there. It has to be this, has to be that in order, it has to be this way and that way. Had it not been me just taking that leap and just doing it, we wouldn't be here right now. Because I would still be thinking about Black Girls Vote. I would like to think I wouldn't be, but that goes back to the procrastination, right? Just do it, right? So I would just say, just do it, no
You're
matter how you
speaking,
feel. Mm-hmm.
you're speaking to me and probably every woman and man that will listen, because for sure, that is, you're speaking to my little girl too.
Yeah, when
So,
I the so that's the best piece of advice I got, and I tell people this all the time: regret what you do, not what you didn't do. Along
mhm.
the lines of doing. So if you do something and you hate it, at least you can say I did it. But the the worry, the mental that goes into like I wonder if I would, I wonder if I had done this versus just doing it and having a story to tell about it, or just saying, you know, I did it, even though I didn't know how it was going to turn out. I did it anyway. I did it scared. I did it afraid. So
I
yeah,
did it.
I
Yeah,
did it. So
that's
just do
right.
it.
That reminds me of a quote that when I used to live in DC, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina now,
Mhm.
but one of my mentors used to always tell me it's better to ask for forgiveness than it is permission.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was like,
Many times I've asked for forgiveness. Yeah. Yep.
yeah. So yes, and I think that is a motto that us as
For sure.
Black women have
Yeah.
to live by, because we
We have
need not to tiptoe and just do it, right?
because we want to be like, I don't want to be like, I don't want to ruffle the wrong feathers. I don't want to do this. I don't want them to make it feel like I'm doing this. But then it's like, you look, if I offended you, I apologize. But like, I got to do with the spirit what I am assigned to do. So shout out to your mentor for that because that is so true.
Yeah. And before we get into these rapid questions or random questions, I like to tailor my questions to the person that I'm talking to. So I don't have like prototype questions, because that's just not
Okay.
who I am.
Okay.
But one of the things you talk a lot about your faith, and I can hear that it has
Mhm.
played a big role in who you are today. Is that, you know, where you got your belief from? Did that start when you were younger, or?
You know what? I didn't grow up in the church. I didn't grow up in a family that was like, oh, let's go to the Bible, let's go to church. We would go to church on New Year's, right? But I just feel like God has not, even when I get anxiety or worry, you know, I was like, God said, have I let you down? I have not let you down this far. What makes you think I'm gonna do it now? Right. And the only thing that I still question God about, even though I know I should, is about my mom, right? And like God, even when she was, I was like, God, you have not let me down this far. Like we locked in, God. It's me and you know, and so as a result of that, I just like, well, he hasn't let me down so far, so he ain't gonna start now, right? But that was always the way that I felt like it always works out somehow, somewhere. And you know, just like just keep doing.
Yeah, yeah. No, and it sounds like it's the foundation
Yeah.
of who you are and how you lead your life. And we see it, right? Like your life is a sermon. Your life preaches to us the work that you're called to do. It's obviously a calling. And so I definitely could see it, and I know other people watching can see it as well. So, it's an anointing, so to
Oh,
speak. I
thank
wasn't raised in the church either, but me and God are locked in. So I
you.
see it.
Yeah, he my homie.
Yeah, the
Broke
homie.
my heart, but he's still my homie. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, girl, I'm sending you hugs.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I'm hugging you virtually. So as a founder and a CEO, what are you reading? Like, what is the book that like you swear by?
You know what am I reading now? It's so funny. I recently went to Nashville, Tennessee. I had a chance to meet Fawn Weaver
Oh,
last year, and then so I went out to Uncle Nearest, and so I have, oh, you know, here for the love of whiskey. That's my next book. I just finished Sheila Johnson's book not too long ago, and that was a
wow.
good one. So now for the love of whiskey is what I am. You know, I know she's about to do audio, so I have the paperback, but I do have For the Love of Whiskey. That's the one I want to tackle next. But it's so excited about that. Went to Nashville and just see what she's building is phenomenal. Like, wow, that's a powerful sister there.
We love Fawn Weaver. We
So
absolutely stand her. Yes, in
she's
this community.
yes.
She's amazing, phenomenal. What are some takeaways from Sheila Johnson's? I want to get into that book.
Mm. Oh
I'm
yeah.
hearing about the experiences. We'll sit you down. So,
Yeah,
like, yeah,
it's kind of like what's about Sheila is like she seems very humble, right? Even in the midst of it, and she deserved what she got from Bob, and even in the midst of the things that he put her through, and she still seemed like she just still operated with a sense of pride and elegance, and and that just the certainty of herself. And she's smart. She talks about her dad and how her dad and mom and the struggles that they had. If I'll tell you the book, and early on, like her dad was a doctor. Didn't know that, but he wasn't it not being faithful, and how it impacted her mom and her family, and how she saw then that her dad had so much power over her mom that she said, I'm never going to be in that position, right? And so that helped her, and even with her and Bob, and when they were broke, and she was a violinist, and she sold her violin, to keep the business afloat. And so just to see how she still showed up for a person and a partner that just I mean I felt like he showed up for her in the same way. But now to see what she's built, and just the trials and tribulations of building the salamander, just a beautiful story. And she found love again, right? She found love with the judge, and now she's married. And you think that you married Bob Johnson, like who you gonna marry after that? But to see that now, she just seems like, based on the book, and everyone understood that she found her person that she had ran into years ago, and then it came back and circled back. So what's for you is for you.
absolutely. I love that. No, thank you for sharing your takeaways because I'm going to get into that book. I love Sheila Johnson,
Oh
and I
yeah,
know she's been through it. So I want to know, how did you deal?
yeah.
Um,
Do you have the audio? Do you have Audible?
I'm a mom. I'm audible and everything,
Okay, look,
right?
I'll give you my passcode. You can listen to it. You can log it up to me, girl. You can listen to it. I don't care. Like, that's so
Okay. Yes, girl, yes, because I'm audible and everything.
that's so funny.
You mentioned you were dating. This is not something that was written down, but
Girl, I gotta go. What time is it? Okay, go ahead.
no, but is that, for future partnership, you obviously are a woman of just, you're worthy because you exist, but you are a high value woman, as they would say. And so, what, it's not, you have to come to the table with something if you want to
Yeah.
sit with Nike. So what is that? What does the dating world look like?
Wait. It's not there yet. We're just getting back into it. We're just getting
Okay.
back into it. But I'm excited about the next journey. With the next chapter, what that would look like. And I know that it'll be someone amazing that we complement each other.
Yeah.
Someone who's smart. I love someone who's smart, right? And just that just the way your brain thinks, so who's brilliant, and someone who I respect and I'm also inspired by, right? People say you inspire people. I'm like, I need somebody to inspire me. We can inspire each other, and work together and build something phenomenal. Yeah,
Yeah.
family is super duper, important to me. I don't have a large family, so just looking forward to just what that next chapter has in store for me, and to find my person, and having a son, things it puts things in a totally different perspective. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot teach a man how to be a man, and look at a black boy, it's just so different, and it's such an awesome black boy. So yeah.
Yeah, for the listeners, like, your Niall is one of the cutest.
He's so
He
cute.
is so adorable, and I just want to just grab him through the phone because he is one of the most beautiful baby boys
Yeah,
you will
people
ever see.
like, does he model? So I want to get him to model. Really quickly, it's so funny. My car today, it's white. The color of it's white. So
Mhm.
we're in a car. We're walking to the car, and I was like, car. I'm like, nah, what color is the car? He was like, white. I said, nah, what color are you? He was like, white. I said, no, 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 you're black. I said, you're a black man. Don't you forget that. He's like, I am a black man because it's for the FA. I was like, black power. He's like, black power. It's so funny. I was like, you're
Yes.
not white. Yeah, that's my little chocolate drop.
Yeah, beautiful chocolate drop. Beautiful. I just love watching him grow from afar, but I love it.
If people like upload more content, so I need to do a better job of that. And
Girl,
I also want to say to the mothers out here, um, now comes with me to majority of the events that I do, and it's not always by choice, but I'm grateful, and and understanding that with our kids and our generation, they need to see it. They need to be in those rooms and making them feel comfortable in certain rooms and certain places and spaces. And sometimes I know it's hard balancing being a mother and having your child and not feeling like, oh snap, or I don't want to say embarrassed, but kind of like, cognizant or insecure about it. And for me, I just learned to just show up and ask for grace along the way. Right. Last week we had a brunch, and now would not. He's at the stage that he wants me to hold him all the time. I got on stage. I said to all the mothers in the house, I need grace today because that's where we are. And don't let that stop you, or don't let that make you feel less than, because everyone has a story, everyone has a circumstance, but just show up, and showing up a lot of times is half the battle.
You actually answered the question, because I was going to ask you, how did motherhood navigate this
Yeah.
new era of leadership? And you answered that. And thank you so much, because that'll preach. Okay. Because a lot of us have mothers. I know my mom took me everywhere, but most of us feel like, oh my God, what is my career supposed to look like now that I had a child? And you certainly are a model for that, because I see him. He was at was at the DNC.
I
Everybody.
didn't have a choice, but thank you to my best friend came, his godmother came, said, I'll watch him these days, but certain days. And I found a babysitter on site in Chicago, like, okay, someone who, so that gave me the chance to balance it. But sometimes, we're out and about, and he's, I had a roundtable discussion now sitting on my lap, because if I had him with somebody else, he'll be banging. I'm like, oh my gosh. But, he's seated at the table with some of the most powerful leaders in the country and saying, hey, this is now, get to know him now. But as a mom, people are like, I love that you bring him. Sometimes it's by choice and sometimes it's by force, but
Yeah.
we're here.
But we're here, and we can't wait to watch now grow up and who
Aw,
he's going to
thank
be, because we already know he's destined for greatness.
you.
Nike, this is my last question, but it has been such an honor. In 3 words, describe what being a CEO means to you.
Mm, it means leadership. It means perseverance. It means commitment.
I
Mm.
love that. Goddess, visionary, just amazing.
Mother.
Mother,
Yeah.
friend, daughter, sister, all the things. Thank you so much, Nike, for saying yes. Thank you.
No, and thank you, Lindsay, for making me pause, right? And just creating a platform for not only just myself, but for other people to hear the journey, because you don't know who you'll be inspired by, or who one day you'll meet and say, I got a chance to hear your story. Let me ask you a question. Or feel like, this has not felt like an interview, it's felt like a conversation. I'm like, oh snap, I'm late to my next meeting, but it's okay because it felt good. And thank you for just creating a platform, and for stepping out on faith and doing it, right? Just do it. I know that you may have had some times, and early on I asked you, so who's doing your editing? Like, girl, oftentimes we got to be the editor, the recorder, the marketer, all those things to get it going. But it's just it's by your faith, and wherever it is, and you never know. Even if you touch one person, which I know will be more, 2 people, it's like, God, I accepted the assignment and I've done well. So thank you for allowing me to be here and in this space. And I'm so proud of you, and I'm praying for you and the journey to CEO. And I look forward to looking at some of the other amazing interviewees and people that you talk to. And so
Absolutely.
so I want to say Black Girls Vote. Make sure you
Black Girls Vote. Okay, where can they find you? What's
Instagram
next for Black
at
Girls Vote?
Nykidra, Instagram, Black Girls Vote, Twitter, Facebook, all at Black Girls Vote. And my handle is at Nykidra, Nykidra. And I'm on the gram, not as much on Twitter, but you can find me, follow me, all that good
Yes.
stuff.
And what is one of the next upcoming events beside registering to vote, everybody?
Yeah, voter registration is super critical. In Baltimore on October 6th, we're hosting a voting festival. Free. We have some talented acts that are coming out. It's a family day. We're going to have some really cool stuff. So just to promote voting, why voting is important. So that's happening. We have the Black Girls Vote Ball. That is November 22nd in Baltimore. Each of our collegiate chapters are doing amazing work. We're going to be doing some activations in Philly around voting, maybe going back to Detroit. So there's so much that's happening. So please continue to follow us on social media. And looking forward to hearing. Send me a DM or message about this interview, me and Lindsay.
Absolutely.
We're accessible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You heard it. Thank you so much, Nike.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
sis. I appreciate you. Who would have thought 8 years ago? Now we're here.
Now we're here.
All right. Thank you so much.